Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Two Dads, One Car, where we talk about modern fatherhood. My friends, today we're going to dive deep into the topic of technology, AI, and children. The reason why is because we're bringing into the car Taleeb Noormohamed. He is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of AI here in Canada. He is the very first Muslim MP to be elected from British Columbia. He's also a really cool guy. We first met in June at an event with the US Consulate, and I was really drawn by how passionate he was talking about his kids. Being a dad, I'm like, I gotta get this guy on the podcast. And so huge thanks to my friend Zara and also to my friend Victoria for pinging his office, getting him in touch, and having him in the show. And so we're just outside of his office right now. We're gonna pick him up and talk about fatherhood very shortly. So stay tuned, chat soon. All right, Taleeb, hey, it's so great to have you on Two Dads, One Car. I'm just thrilled to have you. We first met at an event a couple months ago, and I was like, okay, I gotta have you in the car and talk about fatherhood. I'm excited that you're here next to me, and so thanks for being on.
Thanks, it's great to be here. I'm super excited to be here. I mean, look, as somebody who is a fan, it's also cool to be part of this, having a conversation with you.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to get a sense of your family. Like, walk us through a number of kids, rough ages, and we'll get started from there.
Yeah, so we have two boys, 3.5 and just over 5 months. So we have our hands full, and they're both really great kids, and we're very, very lucky. You know, it's we started a bit later than most people, but you know, it's been great.
3.5 and 5 months. This is actually really well timed because the most recent episode, I finally announced to the guests and listeners that I have a second incoming.
Hey, congratulations!
So excellent.
Excellent. What's your age gap?
It's about the same. My daughter is just over 4.
Okay.
And so she's a second girl coming end of November, and so.
Okay, so you have 2 girls. Excellent. Yeah. Okay.
And you're the first guest I actually get to talk about this with.
Okay. Well, excellent. Glad to talk about it. I'm not sure how much good advice I can give you, but you know.
I mean, you seem to be alive and doing well and full of energy.
Alive today. Yes, yeah.
The first question I like to ask my guys is, to you, like, what is an unspoken truth about parenting or unspoken truth about fatherhood? Something that's not shared as widely, or you kind of wish you kind of knew more about going through your journey?
I think, and I was thinking about that this morning on the plane back from Ottawa. You know, I think you think about your own mortality, and you think about it in the context now of, what's it going to be like if I'm not there for my kids when they need me? And that's sort of a very jarring thing that nobody ever talks to you about, that says, you know, like, what are you know, of all the things you worry about something happening to your kids, you worry about, you know, when they get hurt, all of these terrible things that you think about as a parent that could happen to your kid. We don't often think about like this, and that hit me this morning. We never talk about the fact that one day we're not going to be there for them.
Yeah.
And that sort of hit me like a bit of a ton of bricks earlier today. Because I mean, look, I am very lucky. I have both my parents. I still am very close to them. They're very close to my kids, to our kids. And, you know, I think about that in the context of what happens if something happens to them. But now you sort of say, okay, what happens to my kids if something happens to me? And so that's something that I, you know, kind of hit me today. And among all the other things you worry about, like, am I doing the right things for my kids? Are they going to be set up for success? How do I make sure my kid is a decent human being? All those things. So,
I've actually never explored this track before, which I'm actually really excited to explore this, right? Because you're right. Because if you think about, this is sometimes becoming
it's pretty
a parent,
morbid, I know.
But it's also sometimes that's when the insurance agents know. Like, hey, Stephen, you're expecting a second?
Yeah. Let me sell you this package. Yeah.
But there is something to be said about that, right?
Absolutely.
Because if I'm not in this picture, how does that look like?
It's a very real thing. Like, it's a very, very real thing that we don't often think about, right? It's something that's super morbid. You really don't want to sort of dwell on it, but it's a fact.
And as you're thinking about, like, I mean, what comes to mind? Is it just like, okay, do I have the things set up, like the finances set up, the house? Like, what is it that comes to mind for you?
It's actually not any of that at all. It's what happens when one of the boys picks up the phone to call me and I'm not there. Like, that, it's more that, what is that impact going to be for them? And it's because financial, money, all of that stuff, you know, is hard and it sucks, but you can figure that out, but you can't replace the person. And so that's, so then I think you think about, how do you make your kids resilient? How do you make sure they have what they need, that they have support structures that they need, that they feel good about who they are, that they're confident in themselves. such that, if you're not in the equation anymore, that they have sort of the ability to cope and manage and have a community around them, have a support structure around them that allows them to feel like it's not going to, you can't fill that void, but at least they'll be okay.
And building on that.
What a morbid start.
No, I mean, this is great because I get the sense that you're very intentional about this, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially the show captures modern fatherhood, right? And things that are not shared as widely and these things people do think about, right?
Yeah.
Whether like someone has suffered, like for example, my dad passed like shortly after my daughter was born, right? And it's like, it also, when you mention like, yeah, that's exactly what I think about.
Yeah.
Like, what if I wasn't there as well too? Like in this next little bit, how do these lessons carry on in that front?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because when we think about legacy, it's not necessarily like, sure, it's having a nice whatever, but sometimes that relationship with the parent.
That's the thing. Absolutely. And then the other part of it too is, then you think about how do you transmit culture? How do you transmit family history? How do you transmit who you are, like where your family has come from, right? And so, my own family background, my own faith background, all of these things are intertwined in who I am. Now, my partner comes from a different background, and so making sure that our kids are exposed to that, and also making sure that language particularly is something that they have, because language is a great connector to culture, is increasingly difficult, and you want to make sure that you find a way to do that, because when you are a minority within the broader community, it's hard to find the right ways to make sure your kids understand a part of where they came from, or where a part of them came from, understand that they have an additional language that connects them to a long history and those types of things. So just trying to figure that out too is also, and among everything else, trying to figure out how to make that work. And I haven't cracked that one quite yet, but we're working on it.
This is actually a really good launch point, because I've been a big admirer of you. I know your background. You grew up, it was East Africa background, right? You are the first Muslim MP to serve in British Columbia, which is, I remember, it's recently too, right? And it's incredible. And so there's so much behind that, on top of your education background is stellar. I feel like you've hit all the schools as well. And so there's so much to that, right? And you are that trailblazer in that sense. And the fact you must be thinking about, how do I help, my children, society around me, that aspect of things, right?
Yeah, look, one of the parts of this that you keep with you is, when you're the first of, you don't want to be the last of. You want to make sure that for the communities that you represent, that you do a good enough job, that you are a good example or a good role model, but that you also show people that, like, you can be the first Muslim, you can be the first this, you can be the first that, but that you do a really good job of representing everyone and hearing everyone in that, and making sure that everyone who may be different from you also sees that you can represent them well, while also understanding and appreciating that coming from being the first from a community means that you have an added responsibility to show up and to make sure that you are actively engaged, that the community sees you as actively engaged, so that other people who may never have seen themselves in this before can be like, yeah, you know what, like, I can see myself in that. And that's important.
That is really cool, actually. I mean, there's something to be said about that, right?
Yeah, and so you have to make sure you do things right.
You talked about resilience, and you talked about like building that in your sons. Like, how are you thinking about that in terms of, at this early of an age? Are you putting books like, Ryan Holiday books and like other resiliences?
No. I think it comes, at least for us, it's come from a different way. Like, my partner is like incredible and comes from, a very different background from mine, but has a very, very strong, very similar to mine, emphasis on family.
Yeah.
And I think resilience comes from your kids feeling safe. Resilience comes from your kids feeling like they have the room to do anything, to be anything, and to be successful, whatever they do, knowing that you're going to be there to catch them, right? And so it doesn't mean that they have they have a license to do whatever. I'm talking about good things, like, whether they want to be doctors or or physicians or astronauts or carpenters or whatever they decide they want to be, that like as long as they do their best, that that's going to be the most important thing. But I think resilience in terms of other stuff is knowing who they are, understanding their own red lines, understanding right from wrong, and knowing that it is okay to say no to things that don't feel right, and knowing that it's okay to say this is not who I am, so I'm not going to do this or engage in this or be part of this. That starts to, I think, give them the resilience that they need emotionally to be able to then build out the other types of resilience that you need in terms of, mental well-being, their intellectual sort of horsepower, their EQ, those types of things.
In the earlier, you mentioned that your family is with you in Ottawa during the week, and then when you're here in Vancouver, they're there. First of all, it's incredibly admirable that you're able to do this, while serving in the public while having two young children. So it looks like it's somewhat possible, but what are the biggest challenges I can imagine?
I think there are a few. There is right now, probably more than ever, a public safety concern, right? Which didn't exist, I would say. It was there, but it hasn't really existed in the form that it's been probably since the end of COVID. And so that means that you have to be much more mindful of where you are, who's going to show up at your events, where threats might come from. We did our community barbecue a couple of weeks ago, and we had to have, there was a threat assessment done, and unfortunately, you have RCMP Protective Services there, you have VPD there, and it didn't really used to be that way. And I think what has happened is that the internet and social media have normalized some pretty awful behaviors that are now showing up in real life. And so I think, that's one of the things that is hard, right? The how long can you do this while also worrying about that? And I think that's been a huge deterrent from good people going into public service. It's a huge deterrent from people wanting to run for office. And I think we need to figure that out. And I said this in an interview a few days ago. Somebody is going to get hurt, and we're not going to really take this seriously until somebody does. But it's at the federal level, it's women, it's people of color. It's not just our political party, it's other parties as well. It's happening at the provincial level. It happens at, it's a real thing. And so I think that worries me a lot. And I think that's one of the things that makes this hard. I think the other thing too is, it's such a privilege to do this. And so you want to give it your all because people are putting their faith and their trust in you, and they've given you the responsibility of representing them. And so making sure that you have balance to take care of yourself in that job and take care of your family in that job is really important, but also very hard because the demands are great. And, there are so many crises and so many urgencies that we deal with that you want to make sure that you don't let anybody down, right? So we're in the House Monday through Friday. We're in the chamber Monday through Friday. Committee starts in the morning on Monday, and the House ends with effectively question period on Fridays. And then if you're coming back to the riding, you fly back, you land. If you're lucky, you can get here by 8 o'clock in the evening. If you're really lucky, you get here earlier in the day. So, maybe Friday night you have an event, maybe you don't. But then usually all day Saturday you're doing events in the community.
I see.
All day Sunday you're doing events in the community. And then you either fly back Sunday afternoon or Sunday night on the red eye. And then you rinse, repeat all over. So it takes its toll physically and also in terms of time. But the things that you get to do and the privilege of being able to do this is, it's incredible. It's really, really incredible. So it's just balancing those things.
I was going to say, how do you recharge, right? Because the scenario you described is probably not that, somewhat similar also to those who travel a lot for work purposes, right?
Yeah.
I think in my case, and probably others, probably traveling once a month, maybe once every couple months, right? On top of raising a family.
Yeah.
How do you recharge? Is it during those periods in the airport? All right, time to meditate, time to nap where I can. So, love to hear. Yeah, please.
I actually, believe it or not, on the plane, I don't watch movies, and I have now made it a rule of trying not to work.
Yeah.
So I just try to be quiet, be silent, meditate, be in my thoughts, take a nap, whatever. I think that's important. Listen, the caveat is we had a kid 5 months ago, so some things have changed. But I used to try to go to the gym as often as possible, meditate, take time with family, with friends. Kids are a great way to also sort of put things into perspective.
Yeah.
And, I think help you disconnect and all of that. So that's how you recharge. Recharging is you're chasing them around the house. That's what you do. That's what you do.
I mean, you talked about this tension in society, right? And I guess I'm sure this crosses your mind as you're raising your sons as they enter into this world around us, right?
Yeah.
And especially now with the advent of technology, you're seeing that in the research driving a lot of behaviors that probably you and I didn't experience back in the day. There was no social media back then. There was none of this.
No screens.
No screens. And now with AI, now there's AI companions that are now replacing in-person. It's just a whole world. How do you think about this, right? Because you also have a bit of a tech background too. And I'm really curious to dive into this.
So I mean, and remember, I'm also the Parliamentary Secretary for Artificial Intelligence and Digital, right? So for me, it's this convergence of we want to invest in these amazing technologies and these amazing innovations and Canadian leadership in those things. At the same time, as you're kind of like, how do I make sure that they're responsible tools that aren't going to that are not going to cause harm? And I think that's the tension, right? We can choose to be afraid and hope that it just won't be a thing, and then when it does become a thing, we have to respond. Or you can say, look, AI and innovation in ways that we haven't seen it before is coming, and it's here, and we have to deal with it, and we have to cope with it. So let's figure out how we best deal with it, and let's make sure that we are equipping ourselves and our kids with the literacy to be able to deal with these things properly. Like, how are we working in, how are schools and learning systems adapting to make sure that they are teaching kids how to manage against these things, how to deal with them, teaching them the skills they need to be able to use these as tools, but also helping them understand that there are things that are problematic, really problematic, and how to avoid those things and how not to fall into those traps.
As you're talking about this, it just gives me a flashback to kind of when social media was first set up, right? It's like, this is the best thing ever. You can connect with all your friends.
Yeah.
And I think the early days was like that. Like, well, I could actually meet all the people in my classes, right?
Yes.
This girl I liked, I'll get add her on Facebook and just like send her a message, right? Like, right in the early days. And you're seeing that pattern happen again, right? With this new technology coming. And I'm very tech forward as well too, right? I work at a tech company.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're driving in a car that leverages
That's
AI.
right. That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
But I think the nuance is with children's health in my sense, and that kind of well-being, and how do we navigate that piece, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things, right? Like every family, including ours, like everybody has their tensions about how do you manage screen time.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big issue, right? It's super easy to throw a screen in front of your kid and be like, here, watch this for an hour while I take a deep breath. But we also sometimes forget there are consequences to that, right? Consequences to that. And I think you see a lot of kids when parents try to take the phone away from them, how they react and how they respond. And so there's that. And I think on top of that, then there is the what is available, right? Like watching kids flip through YouTube videos that you and I probably would never have been allowed to watch as kids. And, I mean, those types of things, the degree to which the number of changes are impacting, like changes on screens, colors, short attention spans are impacting kids' learning, kids' brains. These are all things that, obviously we have to think about, that I worry about. And then on top of that, there's the whole thing of what comes next, which is how do you make sure that your kids know, like, that books are a good thing, that touching grass is important, that the AI companion is not actually a real person. All of these things are things that now we have to understand. I will say that, I'm the first to admit that there are sometimes things that are coming up faster than we can even keep up with, that, that I'm sure kids are gonna be better at than we are, just like we were with our parents. And I think the key is to just, again, it goes back to the first thing I said. If your kids have a good sense, I hope anyways, I think, if our kids have a good sense of who they are, the sense of what is right and what is wrong, grounded and confident and comfortable, and feel safe, I think it gives them the psychological strength to be able to understand where they should and shouldn't be going, even online.
There is a lot of power in that, right? And when you model that yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, they might not listen to what you say, but they'll model how you behave, how you act, and the ways you approach this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure the kids are probably watching you when you're, on TV or in the media and beyond, right?
Yeah, and well, your kids are also watching you when you're at home, right? And I am as guilty as anyone of like grabbing the phone and 100%. Checking it and doing this, and then as you're doing it, you're like, oh wait, my kid is seeing this. I really should put the phone away. And so, with jobs like this, like yours, like mine, sometimes people need to get a hold of you at all times. But it is really important, and I'm trying and sometimes failing at making sure that that separation exists between the phone, the screen, and especially when my kids are around.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, I struggle with this too, and I'm sure many who are listening are, right?
Yeah.
Because especially if you're in a high demand job like yours and many others, and there is these different things competing for your time.
Yeah.
Right? There's these aspects of it.
Well, and then, and then the irony of it is like the Instagram, you get in your Instagram feed and there's like a video about like, if you can't go 10 minutes without looking at your phone, it's okay, you're not doing a terrible job as a parent, but you should watch or take our course. And it's like, well, okay, gotcha, thanks. Thank you for making this that much worse for me. And so I just think that these are the, the irony of that should be lost on no one.
That's hilarious, actually. That's just the marketing it that way.
Incredible. It's incredible, right? Yeah.
It's a tool for good and for bad, right?
Yeah.
I guess as we head into this next stage of technology innovation, how do you think about, I think you touched upon it earlier as well, but how do you think about raising your two sons? Because there's been a lot of, I guess maybe more so in the mainstream now, about young boys and talking about how there's a much bigger divide between young boys and young daughters and aspects. So as a father of two boys, I'm going to be a father of two girls coming up too, right?
It's amazing.
Like what I actually would love to dig into what's going on in your mind too.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a few things, right? One, we have been very intentional about making sure that the older ones, it'll be the same for the are doing things, like doing stuff, right? So going outside, going to the playground, reading books, going swimming, spending time with their grandparents, like really spending time with their grandparents. And whenever they go to my parents' place, like my dad sets up for the older one, like he sets up an entire adventure, like they go and do stuff. There's like an egg hunt or dinosaur hunt at home. Nice. And there's like a themed out sort of whatever, right? So when, every Saturday when he goes there, he's got this whole like plan, right? So my dad's like, yeah, we're going to do this. There's like a theme to the day. And so they have a whole so right. So there are no screens. There's none of that stuff. And so I think to show them that there is a life beyond the screen, right?
Yeah.
To show them early that like going outside is really fun and going to the playground and talking to people face to face. And the older one doesn't stop talking, right? He loves talking to people, it's great. Like talking to people is actually good. And, we say our prayers together every day, right? So like just giving him all of these different points of sort of grounding, right? That's key. And my partner is so good about making sure that he is going outside and doing this and active and in the middle of all of this, like helping to make dinner or she'll be working, but also like it's I think that balance of having as parents taking on the fact that it's really important for them to see that there is stuff to do. And when he does watch, like one of the things that we've started to do with him is we have gone to really lo-fi old school stuff that we used to watch, right?
Okay.
So Daniel Tiger, fine, everybody watches Daniel Tiger, but our guy now watches Inspector Gadget.
Oh, nice.
Right? So he's like fascinated by Inspector Gadget. Now, everyone says, well, when we were kids, that Inspector Gadget was like sort of extreme, but now Inspector Gadget is like so lo-fi and so like long stories, like 20-minute story as opposed to like these 4-second videos that they watch. So he has to focus on the entire story and, he's asking questions about why does he have a helicopter in his hat? And, so it's nice to see him watching those things. I can relate to them.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's my childhood. But he is not falling into these super bright, super colorful, like 4-minute videos that are that just incent them to watch more and more. But he will go days without even saying, hey, I want to watch this or watch that, because just keeping him busy with stuff. And he has a great imagination, so he'll run around wearing his firefighter costume or his astronaut costume. So we enable that. We're like, you want to be a chef today? Great, come be a chef. We'll give you a pot and a pan and off you go.
It sounds like for Halloween we're doing some Inspector Gadget costumes.
So I don't know what this Halloween is going to be. He'll come up with something that he wants to be. I mean, I think last week he was talking about going as a knight. So whatever works for him.
I love it. This is such a great idea. I'm going to borrow it.
Yeah, please. I mean, listen, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but try it.
I feel so, but I think you're onto something there, because even in the technology social media game, it's like, how do you hook someone in 3 seconds? I'm like, 3 seconds?
Yep.
Like, is this what's happening?
That's
and
what's happening. Yeah.
You're even seeing this in the way we're speaking and the attention span and all of that. I'm like, whoa.
Well, look, I mean, even in politics, right? We are down to, you have to communicate everything in 140 characters, or, we've now gone from Instagram post to doing a story, which is like how many seconds, right? So we have to communicate in that way, and I think we are training people's brains to do that. But the downside to that is you lose nuance, you lose depth, I think you lose the humanity of understanding something. And, especially with kids, helping them, what the heck do I know? I mean, I don't know if this is right, but
there's no right answer here. Yeah.
I think that especially with kids, if we are doing right by them, we are giving them the capacity to absorb more information in a sitting, in a steady, thoughtful, methodical way, kind of like we did, rather than a whole bunch of snippets of stuff, right? Like, it is okay to dig into something and dig deep. And, my elder one loves going to the museum. Like, he loves museums, right? Yeah. And he comes back with like a million questions. And, the mistake that we can make is ignoring the questions. But I think the most interesting thing to do is like to answer the questions, right? So, you have to make time for that, and that's hard. And so, whenever we come back from somewhere, he has all of these questions. I just set myself up to just answer all of this, and I love it. I think it's great, right? So sometimes you don't know the answer. It's like, well, what's the answer? I don't know. I'll find out the answer and I'll come back to you, right? And the little bugger remembers, and so he's like, "You said you were going to tell me about this. What is this, Daddy? What?" Right? So you have to remember that these kids are actually absorbing everything you say, and you have to deliver on the thing that you said you were going to do. So, the other day he asked me, I can't remember what it was, but I had to go back and do some research. Like, that's how this works, right? So we were talking about sublimation.
Okay,
we were talking about sublimation, right? Like, how do you go from solid to gas, right? Like, how do you miss the liquid phase? And, I used the word, he's like, what's sublimation, Daddy? Explain it. And I was like, I'm not doing a great job at this, so I better go back and do some work. But, now he's, when he falls, I'm like, what happened? He looks at me and goes, gravity. There you go. You learned it. That's right. That is why gravity happened. Correct. So you feel like, okay, they've asked questions and now they've absorbed something, and you feel like, okay, like I have taught him something. I have taught him about gravity.
There's something magical in what you just shared there, and it just gave me a lot of joy to hear that, because sometimes when we talk about when the kids ask why this, why that, of course, like I've been in the situation, man, this is getting annoying. Like, what is that for? What is that for? But then you, as you reflect, it's like, this is actually feeding that curiosity.
Totally.
And that curiosity leads to so many different
things. That's where discovery comes from, right? And if we have the greatest joy of them actually wanting to talk to us and asking us questions.
Yes.
And that doesn't last forever, right? Because of how old I am, my friends have kids that are older, and they're like, enjoy it while it lasts, because it doesn't last long, and it's true. But, I'm at a point right now where I feel very lucky, as are you, where your kids are at an age where they actually want us to tell them things. And so you get to answer all these questions. You get to be part of helping them think through something. And, what a great joy that is. And to me, it's a huge responsibility, A, to provide them good information, but B, to just be like, look, I can talk to my kid about gravity, or I can talk to him about why leaves change color, or how a plane takes off, or all of these things that are, we may take for granted, but that you realize that this young brain is just processing right now how this works, right? So how do construction tools work? What's a jackhammer? Our favorite question these days, what is a jackhammer? Right? Explaining why a jackhammer is important, and what a jackhammer does, and I don't understand, if you're building something, why is it breaking something? That's a great question. Let's explore, right? So it's interesting that way to also see how their brains work, and see how when we assume things, then we sometimes assume that there's a knowledge base that people have about things, especially our kids.
Yeah.
That actually they don't. Like, this is their first time understanding something, and it's pretty wild.
You know what's funny? I remember listening to one of your videos and how both your parents are architects, right? Yeah. Do you think your son is starting to exhibit like, oh, what is a jackhammer? How does this shape it out? Like designing something like the next Eiffel Tower and Lego. I don't know.
He is, it's funny because like both my parents, my sister are all design professionals, right?
Okay,
and so when he's with them, he is surrounded by them building things and doing things with him. And so do I think that, I mean, he loves building things. He loves constructing things. I mean, and if like every 3-year-old boy, he also loves like taking them down,
of course, and break them
with great force. But it's interesting, right? Because he's also super interested in being a doctor and asking questions about how this works. And a very good friend of ours, and her husband are both doctors, and so he is fascinated by this, right? The fact that they have their own stethoscope, the fact that they take care of people and they like deal with illness, and so he's like fascinated, absolutely fascinated by this.
Yeah.
And so there's that, because we are down a doctor or two in our family. We don't have as many doctors as we would like, So I'm kind of secretly hoping that that's what he might do. But man, he talks a lot. So he could follow after his mom and be a lawyer, follow after his dad and go into politics. So I don't know that I would wish that for him. But right now the great thing is you just see them. They could do anything. They could be anything. And that's such a cool thing. And like helping him figure out what his passion is going to be, and then doing it, I guess.
And this is actually a good like circle back to the very beginning of the conversation, right? Because we think about this period we have to spend time with them, feed that curiosity, ask them the why. At the same time, we're like, oh, there could be a chance that I might not be around for this, right? And how do I, this limited time I have? Like, you're right though. Like there's probably up until they're 10 or 12, they probably don't want to talk to you anymore, right?
Yeah.
So it's really just 10 more years. Like,
I mean, that's right. That's ominous, but yeah. So
I didn't talk to my dad till I was like 11, right? I'm just talking to me.
Right, yeah. I mean, I just, I don't know. I think you take the chance, you take the opportunity that you have, and you spend time. One of the things that I love to do, and we traveled a lot before we had kids, but we are trying really hard to make sure we keep doing that. Now, I will admit, and I will admit, that's all I will say, that it was very, very hard going to Europe with a 3.5-year-old and a 4-month-old.
Oh my gosh.
And it was incredible in that I think it was for the older one, I think it was great. I think the younger one has no clue what was going on. But it's taxing, right? In a way that you don't think about. 2 strollers, 2 car seats. It's a lot. But it was great because at the end of it, you get this time together, you have these memories together, and the elder one now is like, again, he has a whole set of questions and experiences that have come from this trip and is excited about his next adventure, wherever it's going to be. And I think that traveling together, at least for the boys, I hope it becomes something that they will want to do.
Yeah.
Because you learn so much, you see so much, and you get exposed to difference in a way that you're not on your terms. You're exposed to difference on somebody else's terms. And living in somebody else's environment, living in somebody else's cultural or linguistic context, I think gives you a great appreciation for that, for differences in culture, for different cultures. So I mean, travel is another thing that I think really, wherever possible,
Of course, yeah.
I would recommend, even if it's like a 2 or 3 day trip here, just that, because something's different when you're on a trip together. You just, you're so much more, ironically, we're so much more invested in that time together when we're away from home, which is a strange thing. But, I love an adventure, and, so, I think all of us, the whole family does, which is great. You can go and try new things together wherever possible.
I think there's a lot of truth to that, because when you're in different places, different countries, your eyes just open up, right? And I think about the most formative times of my life was actually when I went on exchange to a new country.
There you go.
You're like, whoa, this is so fascinating. If I can ask, as we kind of round this out, like, what are you looking forward to in this next chapter of fatherhood for you? Right? Like, what is this next? Like, what are you excited about in this next chapter of fatherhood, or this next stage of fatherhood?
Well, it's not going to be a full night of sleep. No, I guess what I'm really looking forward to is seeing the boys together. Actually,
Yeah.
they really, you can tell that like even at this age, like there's a real special bond between them. The older one is so excited when he comes home to see his little brother. In the morning, he wants to cuddle his brother. Like he is very excited about that. And you know, the little one just lights up when his older brother is there. He may not have the contextual sort of frame on it, but he gets really excited when he sees his brother. So, you know, for me, like just seeing the two of them grow up together and hopefully liking each other. You know, there are horror stories you hear from people, but I hope they like each other. I hope they continue to love each other. But I'm excited to see the things that they will do individually and together, and ideally that they will enjoy spending time together. Because you know, as you talk, we begin and end with mortality, I guess. Yep. But like you know, when we're gone, you know, that's going to be the oldest relationship that they have. Yeah. And having them spend that time together and having them appreciate each other and knowing that they can count on each other is hugely important. So you know, that to me is one of the things that I'm looking forward to, making sure that we do our part and making sure that as parents, we help them understand how important it is to build that bond between them.
I mean, the fact that you're thinking about it right now, it just shows that level of intention. And when you're creating that environment, I can only imagine, right, all the amazing things that will come up. And yeah, there's a lot of truth to what you said just now, right? It's very much so.
Yeah. Well, look, you've got your own journey to go on. So, you know, these are all things that you get to think about now too. Let me ask you, like, you're getting ready. You guys are how many months away now?
We are, so she's due end of November. So
okay, 2 months you got 2. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you ready?
There is definitely some apprehension for sure. Excited because my oldest, she's so excited that she's gonna have a baby sister coming up. So every day she's playing like baby sister, big sister, like drawing images of my wife and the little sister inside my wife's belly. And so she is excited for sure on that.
And did you keep all your stuff?
Yeah.
See, that's the game changer. We can keep everything and just like reuse. Now, the thing that you will understand, I think, quickly, that we understood, and we still understand, is that pretty much everything the second kid has is going to be used. Yeah. Which is okay, you know, which is fine. But I think we were, the first one, you're so worried about like hurting them or something happening to them or God forbid killing them, that I think that by the time you have the second, you ease up a little bit. And it's a little bit, you know, I think we're much more, not lax, but I think we're breathing a lot easier with the second one than we were with the first. So that is something that you have to look forward to for sure.
I'm sure like you'll be able to like your back is relaxed a little bit, right?
Well, you've done it before, right? No two kids are the same, but you know, now you know how to change a diaper. You know that you're going to be getting up multiple times during the night. I mean, all the things that you didn't know the first time, or that people had told you but you never lived, now you know. And you know, I would say it's easy. I mean, look, it's easier for us because the second one is a boy, because we know exactly what we did with the first. It'd be easier for you because it's a girl. You know what you did with the first. If you switch it up, now that becomes a whole new level of complexity to the whole thing. So, like our shop is closed. We're not planning to have any more. Yeah. But you know, if you are, you know,
I think it's just 2.
but you know, I would say, you know, the other thing is make sure you guys understand that 2 is not 1.
Yeah, okay.
2 is not 1. Somebody said that to me and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but now I understand.
I mean, the fact that you went to Europe with 2, I mean...
Hey, listen, man, now we can do anything.
Like, I got it.
You understand, like, you even in context, right? So just contextually, we had the second child during an election campaign.
Oh my gosh.
Right, like second week of the campaign, we had the second child. So, you know, we are nothing if not crazy when it comes to how we schedule things.
That is wild.
My partner started a new law firm 4 days before the little guy was guy was born.
Oh my god!
And then 2 weeks later was election day. So, you know, it's all easier after that. So, you know, but I think, you know, if you gotta, life is gonna deal you what it's gonna deal you, and the most important thing is just like remember to smile, keep things in perspective, and be grateful, because you know these are all first world problems, and they are all problems that a lot of people be very, very lucky to have.
That's incredible. And it just, you know, we kind of face the challenge as it comes, right? And with a smile and where we can and with our capacities. And That's next level. You did so well in the last election as well too. So clearly, I guess one should have a baby in the Pacific.
Yes, highly recommend.
Actually, there's many things leading up to that.
Yeah.
Last question, if I can. Anything you want to share with the audience, like things you're working on, ways we can support you. We covered so many incredible topics, and again, I do really admire that you are a trailblazer in so many different ways, and the fact that we're having this conversation on these deeper topics, it's incredible. And so I want to give you the platform, whatever it is that you want to share.
Well, look, the only thing I'll say is that it's you're only as good as the voice you are for your constituents, right? So I just say if there are things that we can do to help, if there's anything that my office can do to help, people should reach out. If there's anything that people think we could be doing better or differently, to let us know. But I would just say also, regardless of whether they're my constituents or others, remember that your elected officials are there to be helpful and to serve, and that they're human beings, and that we're not always perfect in what we do, but we're trying our best. And regardless of our political party, like most people get into this because they care about doing good for the community. And so sometimes I would say give people the benefit of the doubt, hold them to account. But I would say also, like, don't be afraid to engage with us. You'll be surprised at the number of times I will knock on. I knock on a lot of doors. It's my thing. I love knocking on doors. So we'll go knock on people's doors, and they'll be surprised that their MP is there because they've never had someone in elected office knock on their door before.
Yeah.
And it's equally surprising the number of times people are like, "No, I'm good. Thank you. Off you go."
Yeah.
But I think it's so important for us as politicians to have our constituents talk to us. So I would just say, talk to us, engage with us. You may not always get an answer that you want. We may not always like what you have to say, but we can only do our jobs well if we have really good engagement with our constituents. So, yeah.
I could really sense the care and the heart that you put into it, even in this conversation today. So thanks, I appreciate so much. Thank you for taking the time.
Likewise, thank you, and good luck over the next few weeks.
I know. Hopefully I'll survive. If I'm off the face of the earth, you know why. Yeah. But we'll do a debrief with everyone afterwards. But thank you so much for joining us on 2 Car.
Sounds good. And I can't wait to hear your own podcast and your experience.
All right, and that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Taleeb, for joining us on the podcast. It was so great to hear your journey, learn about your background. This conversation was really touching because it's so topical, right? We're talking about technology, we're talking about AI, we're talking about the impact that it could have on our children. We're tracking a similar journey, right? Taleeb has 2 kids under the age of 4. I'm about to have a second one incoming, and so it's great to get and hear about his philosophy, his approach, on top of balancing that with a really demanding job and travel schedule. And so it's really fascinating to have that conversation. I really enjoyed our time. I hope you did as well too. So if you love the podcast, like the episode, give it a follow on Instagram, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify and YouTube, also on 2 Dads 1 Car. And also, I'd love to chat with anyone one-on-one. So reach out on LinkedIn, love to continue the conversation there. And with that, have a great day, have a great evening, wherever you're listening to this podcast. I appreciate you. I thank you. This is such a privilege to be in the car with you. And so thank you all for joining us today. And we'll see you all next time. Cheers.